Welcome back, y'all. It's been 6 months. We're still alive. The Hyperdrive error
Barely.
still exists. It's just this. I'm saying hi, hello, how's it going? Introductions. Figure out your own order. It's chaos time,
Hello, I'm Sonata.
unfortunately. Who's next?
Indeed.
Go for it.
I am Donovan, unfortunately.
Mm. Howdy, folks. I am Marin, also known as Sick Dr. Art, on all socials.
Yeah, self-plug for the 50th time. SMH. No.
Yeah.
Have I made that joke yet? Did we make the self-plug joke before?
A lot,
I
I think.
we've run this
I
joke
think
into
every
the
time.
fucking ground.
It says you.
I think I'm gonna make it every time.
Go for it.
Hey Sonata, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the Star Wars prequel trilogy. All of the good, all of the bad, and all of the meh.
Nah.
Oh, wait, there's good.
Yeah.
No. uh,
Oh,
that's
no,
a
just-
joke.
We're not talking about the sequels.
Okay.
Hush. Hush.
Yeah, but
you.
see, I'm here for the hot takes. And
Oh, the
saying
hottest.
that the sequels are bad isn't a hot take. And
Real.
prequels, on the other hand, saying they're bad has progressed more into hot take territory.
Yeah.
Not that I think they are all that bad, but
I mean, some are worse than others, absolutely. Why don't we start this off with what began it all in terms
New
of the
Hope.
prequel department?
uh,
So, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I'm going to start this off by saying this up front. There are two good parts of that movie. The first is the pod racing scene. The second is Duel the Phase. Everything else in that film to me is either in the meh territory or in the god-awful territory. Alright, now, I want to hear others' opinions. Can you think of anything in The Phantom Menace that you would actually call a good scene?
The introduction of Gunga City, or whatever the fuck the city is called. Just the introduction of the city itself. Not necessarily like the council scene, but them getting there, landing on the platform, getting stopped by the guards. I like that scene. I think it's a good scene, both like it's a cool world building scene. It's like holy shit, cool Star Wars, planet scene, and you get some cool character moments between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
Yeah, I mean,
Alright.
I don't disagree with that. It's just my entire problem with the movie is just that its premise is boring as hell.
you're not a fan of taxation?
You
I don't
see,
think
Was that
anybody is.
representation?
Except for the American government. Sorry.
I'm not going to get into my political views. However, I'd point out that the American government doesn't like to tax anyone that actually has money.
Jesus Christ.
Uh,
We're here
They
to
are
talk about
wrong.
fictional politics,
my-
not real ones right now.
But my
Sorry.
turning back to the fictional politics, my big issue with the movie is just the premise of this all being over like fucking taxes and trade negotiations. It just means that the movie is committing, in my mind, one of the biggest cardinal sins in entertainment media. It's boring. I spend 90% of my time in the movie waiting for the next action scene. And to be fair, the choreography in most of the action scenes is brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know. There are some of the scenes on Tatooine that I don't hate. Like some of Qui-Gon's talking, like you get some interesting points here. I kind of wish that I would have taken the time to rewatch the movies for this. I should have. I didn't. You
Yeah.
heard it here first. I did not show up prepared.
Bad Star Wars fan. I don't
Yeah,
have Disney
but
Plus right now.
especially some of Qui-Gon's just general stuff when he's like just convinced that Anakin's the chosen one. I think it's kind of interesting. I think I don't know, Sonata, do you have like a list of questions? Because I know you're like, oh, talk about scenes that you think are good, besides the two big ones. Or
mean,
can I just jump
I should
around
have
a little?
clarified. I should have clarified. You could have also picked the same scenes I did. I wouldn't have cared
Well,
that
no,
much.
that's.
Um,
I think it's a given.
And we
I
can
don't
all
know
agree
anybody
that those
that
are good scenes.
hates the pod race, and nobody hates the Duel of the Fates. I challenge you guys to find somebody who hates that saber duel, because I know they're out there. There's one Star Wars fan who just hates everything.
That reminds me, I never actually answered Sonata's question.
Yeah.
would you like
I
to?
suppose aside from the ones you mentioned, one scene that I did enjoy is the first encounter with Maul on Tatooine.
Oh yeah.
Where he's fighting Qui-Gon, and they're trying to get the ship over there and escape and all that, and I think it's a good chase scene that transitions into a well choreographed fight scene.
Mm.
Obligatory run over little kid joke here.
I mean, if he'd just done it.
Yeah, no. Darth Maul would have saved a lot of people.
Yeah.
Darth Maul would have single-handedly probably prevented
He would have been
a
a
good
hero.
chunk of deaths. Yeah. All right. So up next, I want to get this Band-Aid ripped off as soon as possible, but also mitigate it with some positivity. So let's get this over with. The worst part of Phantom Menace for you. I will say up front real quickly that I have no issues with Ahmed Best whatsoever as an actor. The guy is talented as demonstrated in his other works. But the writing he was given as Jar Jar Binks, and the fact the poor man had to perform the way he did, oh god, it made that movie so hard for me to rewatch the other day. And I suppose if I'm not allowed to bring up Jar Jar, then all of the politicking can get pretty dull pretty quick. I'm
My
here to-
answer. Go for it. Sorry.
I just want to make a joke. I came here to watch Wars in the Stars, not C-SPAN in space.
Mhm. I think my least favorite is anytime Anakin and Padme are on screen together. I'm sorry. Are you
that's
an
true.
angel? Like everyone jokes about that because child actors, you can only give them so much, and that poor kid after that movie came out was absolutely dragged through the mud in school. I feel so awful for him. But it wasn't necessarily, those scenes weren't written or directed well. I think Natalie Portman did what she could, and I think this kid acted his heart out.
Fake Lloyd.
Yeah. But those scenes make me genuinely, I skip them. So I should just straight up skip them half the time.
I
Do
think
we-
I'm gonna I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to agree with Marin on this one. Because what also gets me is just the knowledge that they're that far apart in age and they end up together is incredibly creepy to me.
I'll mitigate some of that creepiness and saying it's not like they kept in constant contact or anything. So, people always say the whole Padme, groom them comment. It's not really.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any grooming happening.
It's a
But
little
I just
odd
get
that
the
they opted
age
to.
difference makes me a little uncomfortable, given that they at least knew each other before they were adults.
Yeah.
While we're on interesting topics, how spicy? I know we weren't talking about like, we ixed the politicking thing, but I talk about the stereotypes in this movie.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
we can
So-
talk about the implied if we're thinking about Watto, the
Yeah,
implied
Watto's one of them.
anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Wada was one of them.
My
other
tricks
would
don't
be-
work on me, only money, and leans into
Having a
the
big-
yeah,
yeah,
the
into all
Nemoidians,
the stereotypes. Yep.
Yeah.
and the one that I give the least merit to, although I definitely like get why people have seen it that way, is Jar Jar, and kind of just the Gungan speech pattern as a whole. It's very clear that I feel like maybe we've talked about it on here before, but George Lucas is no perfect human being. He's he's a little bit problematic in some senses. I feel like this movie kind of puts it on show a little, where it's like you get and one of the biggest praises I will give this movie is that it does a lot of good world building for Star Wars in an era that at the time you hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
You get a lot more. Unfortunately, it comes with here's a few new Star Wars races that are based on
Apparently racist.
stereotypes. Yeah.
Problematic.
Yeah. But again, to pivot to a more positive light, I do like that this movie took the time to establish that, like, we're in the time where we have this great spanning government, and it's theoretically a time of peace. We go a few places. We feel that the galaxy is a lot bigger than I think the previous 3 movies made it feel, and largely thanks to, I think, just thanks to ILM for that and their visual effects. Because that's one of the reasons that George Lucas kind of waited for the prequels, was he wanted the technology, and at that time he was like, I think we got it now. And it was really nice, because city planets were not the closest you had was something like Cloud City in the original trilogy. So to see Coruscant was, it's cool. I like what the Phantom Menace sets out in its world building. I think the world building kind of does overtake the plot at some points, and I think if you're gonna be a political thriller, you either need to commit to it or not do it. Because I think the Phantom Menace is like, yeah, we're trying to do taxes, but not actually get into why any of this is going on, other than the Nemoidians have set up a blockade over the planet, and this is somehow fucking legal.
My lord, is that legal?
Yeah, it's not even actually legal, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep. Someone who isn't even chancellor yet will make it legal.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I think Phantom Menace suffers from one of the same major flaws as Mass Effect Andromeda did. For those who are, familiar with that whole debacle. Because it was expanding so far away from what was known Star Wars canon. It had to do so much world building that it didn't necessarily always have the time it needed for its own plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't able, in order to still have a reasonable runtime, it wasn't able to properly develop its own plot, which is why shortcuts were used with characters like Jar Jar and how he was written. Or at least that's my hope as to why Jar Jar was written so relatively poorly.
I think Jar Jar is just meant to be comedic relief
He's
for
also
kids.
just comic relief, but
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is a kid's thing. That's what Star Wars is. I don't think Jar Jar is as bad as most people make him out to be, honestly.
Oh, 100%.
He's not as bad, but he's still pretty bad. The next thing I wanted to ask you guys is something fairly simple. If there was one thing that you could change in The Phantom Menace in an attempt to improve the film, what would that one thing be?
Oh God. That's
Got
a
an
good
answer,
one.
but it doesn't actually answer the question. And I
Really
might
open
save
to
it for later.
You
If
have
I
a first
had to
fucking answer.
change one thing though, maybe just a lot of the Naboo centric plot. I can't tell you without like sitting down and really scratching my head over like what I'd do to make that work, but I want something more compelling than just they blockaded and we're doing nothing about it. Because then that really poses the question as the viewer, okay, if nobody can do anything about this, how does the Republic even maintain order? Because Naboo's kind of, and I don't know if the movie necessarily gives this implication off the top of my head, but like larger Star Wars has made Naboo out to be a pretty big deal. Like it's a decently important planet. If you can't keep them from getting blockaded, I want more about why, other than, and I think this kind of goes back to the previous point, right, where it's like it kind of just gets wrapped up in itself, and that George Lucas really wants to talk about like the decline of democracy throughout all these movies, which is probably a theme that we'll talk again and again on. But and that, you know, Naboo is kind of like this because of this just political fucking knot that is the Senate. I want to see a little more oomph in the blockade by the Trade Federation. I think, you know, because they're like, oh yeah, they're starving the Naboo, and it's like half your fucking planet is a farm. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You know, maybe Naboo had a fleet that got like struck down because most planets have planetary defense fleets. And that's how the Republic maintains its order, is it kind of delegates a lot of its stuff like that. So I think that would have been I feel like the direness of the situation on Naboo comes down to a lot of George Lucas telling rather than showing.
Yeah.
And I think that would fix the movie a fair bit.
It's like it's a bunch of little things, right? It's like
Yeah.
they'd have a good way that they could allude to their, like, even if they don't outright say, hey, there was a fleet that was destroyed, they could allude to it by just like having the wreckage floating around the separatist fleet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've noticed that that's a consistent. Bringing up your mention of the decline of democracy, it's a fairly consistent theme I've noticed. That Lucas is pretty damn good at showing the decline of democracy, but not showing how it's or why it's declining beyond
Yeah.
haha Sith evil.
Yeah, it's like there's parts of it where I'm like, yeah, this is
yeah.
really interesting to see. You know, the abuse of the chancellorship is really, but that's really all we outright get.
Yeah, because like
Um,
later in the movie, you know, on Coruscant, supposedly that vote's supposed to fail because the Senate's corrupt and it is being controlled by, you know, fucking two Sith lords. The problem is that's never shown. It's just the vote fails. Or whatever the fucking problem
yeah,
is.
I think that kind of goes back to when I was like, you need to like show some stuff. Show me the Senate. Commit to being that political thriller for a moment, and show me this back and forth a little more.
Hell, you don't even need to show the back and forth really. To show that the Senate's corrupt, you can just have a couple of different people from different species exchanging credits in
Yeah.
the scene and make a point of showing that.
To be fair, we do get the fact that Newt Gunray is in the Senate. Like, he has a place in the Senate, and you're like,
Yeah.
huh? Isn't this guy just the head of a company or like an organization and not
A major corporation, yeah.
That's my
He
answer.
gets a Senate seat.
Yeah.
The
Jesus.
logical next step to Citizens United.
Huh.
If-
Now, I mean, honestly, I think that'd be my change as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I kind of wish, like, to be honest, I don't think. Basically, I don't think anything on Tatooine needs to happen. Everything that happened on Tatooine could happen on Naboo.
Yeah, they're not wrong.
So I feel like they could like getting Anakin to Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon gets a bit more awkward because something Naboo, something Beacon of Democracy, something slavery is illegal in the Republic, whatever, doesn't matter.
That's
It's still
sorry, go ahead.
it gets a little bit more complicated actually getting Anakin to the rest of the group. But I feel like by cutting out that entire, you know, like maybe not cutting out the hyperdrive plot and the pod race, but by cutting out a bunch of the assorted bullshit around that in Tatooine, like on Tatooine, they could have opened up more time for other things that would have been more beneficial.
I mean, if you were to hypothetically put Anakin on Naboo, this is when you just like explore the idea of the borderline slavery, you know, like the indentured servitude and whatnot, the stuff that technically doesn't count, and therefore it is very hard for even people in power to do anything. And thus, you know, decline of democracy to a certain extent. Like, look, we've elected these officials and even they can't do anything. Because the queen is an elected position.
Yeah.
Now, why are you electing a 14-year-old to rule your country? I don't know. Like sure, or planet. Like, sure, I'm all for, you know, maybe cutting down on the fucking dinosaurs in Congress or whatever. You know, we shouldn't have people born during World War II or, you know, who lived, like, as adults through World War II up there anymore. But, like, this is too far in the other direction. So that's, I mean, that's a route they could have gone with it.
Well, they don't even necessarily need to make him a slave. If they want to show, like, decline of democracy, they can use decline of social programs. Hey, his mom's in a lot of debt. He has to work to make sure that they don't fucking starve to death. and there's no fucking social programs or whatnot to help them. Congratulations, decline of democracy, you did it. And they're on Naboo, so you don't need to go to Tatooine and waste all that time.
Right. I've got another based change that I would make.
No.
I'd make Naboo Alderaan. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I'd do.
Yeah. Because
I can
I
see
kind of
that,
forget
yeah.
the fact that Alderaan is like a place. I'm not gonna lie, I forget about Alderaan all the time because the only
Yeah.
times we've seen it on screen are in Obi-Wan, and we've seen it in the original trilogy. A little bit of it. We see it
To
get
be
blown up.
honest, yeah, replace Naboo with Alderaan. Maybe keep Padme as
Yeah.
keep Padme as like probably not, elected king or queen rather, but relatively important. Replace Panaka with Bail.
Yeah, well, Panaka's
Actually,
just security. He's not
That's true.
even. But
he doesn't do anything in the story.
yeah,
Having Bail Organa in there at least to set him up as an actual character before Revenge of the Sith.
yeah, no. I've just always thought that I feel like that gives a ton more retroactive weight if they make. The only thing I could potentially see, like, the counterpoint is now now Palpatine is the senator for Alderaan, which I guess makes the destroying of it even more funny. Um, but I think that all in all, that retroactively gives so much more emotional weight to to that scene in the original trilogy, knowing like you've actually gotten to see the planet, and it still expands the hell out of the world building. It's not like you ever got to see Alderaan. That's why I think it's a crime that you get to see Alderaan in SWTOR the most, and ignoring the fact that I fucking hate it in SWTOR, but that's map design and not Alderaan itself. Like I think that's the change that I would have made, and I don't know. I think that would have been more interesting. Making Anakin from Alderaan would have certainly been a decision.
I mean,
Here's
you first.
I'm
Sonata.
sorry, Donovan. Here's a small change I would make, and I think that this would help set things up for the future more than anything else. I would have included Plagueis into the story, at least in a minor fashion. Like, we get a single story about the guy and what he's working towards and all that jazz. But beyond that, except with a Legends book, we get very little on him. And I would have liked to see an angle of a Phantom Menace where we get to see that even the mastermind behind this whole course of events is himself being commanded by somebody else. To give that sense of throughout the Phantom Menace, it's with the knowledge, granted with the meta knowledge you have, it's pretty obvious that Palpatine's the one in control for almost the entirety of the film. I would have liked to see an example of the fact that, not an example, that's the wrong word. I would have liked to see us get at least an indicator of, Palpatine was believed to be the Master, but it turns out this guy has been the Master, or rather was the Master prior to Palpatine killing him. Does that make any sense?
I think that would just confuse the shit out of audiences to have 3 Sith on the screen and then make a comment about the rule of 2 in the same movie. I think
Fair.
like that's my um I don't, because also the canon approach has never indicated if Plagueis was alive during the Phantom Menace. Legends did, but um, given that by this time you already have, at this point in canon now, Sidious is like has Darth Maul and is playing Count Dooku and using Dooku. It, I think throwing a third Sith into the mix just makes it a whole lot, especially because it's a lot harder to say. I almost don't like that Legends made Plagueis alive during the Phantom Menace, because it's this matter of you can't even use the caveat of, oh well, he's just a Sith assassin, because he's Darth Maul. He has the Sith title, which is certainly a choice. I think Plagueis would have just muddied things up way more than needed to be in an already like very like complex and bogged down plot. I don't know if I'd want to see Plagueis in it.
That's fair.
To be honest, I tend to agree with Justice for the most part.
The movie already has so much going on in terms of new content that people have not heard of before. I think adding in Plagueis would be too much.
I think, give me
I
a show
do-
about Plagueis in the background.
I would.
I'd be fine with that, but like you know, I don't hate. I'm not the biggest fan of him being alive during the time frame, but I don't hate it. I don't mind that he's got this role in the story of setting everything up, but I just think that would be a lot to throw into the movie. If he had an unnamed cameo, maybe that wouldn't be that where it's just like Palpatine meeting with a moon in a cloak, and it just looks like another shady backroom deal. Maybe that wouldn't be bad, but that almost come off as like borderline like Marvel cameo or something, and I don't know about that. But I mean, that'd be interesting to give that hint of like, yeah, look at Palpatine. He's just as corrupt as the rest of them. Talking about corruption, there's a little handoff in a back room or something, and then if you're a deep lore nerd, you're like, oh yeah, but he's a different kind of corrupt. He's just a Sith, because that's his Sith master. But yeah.
But I think that's the only way you could do Plagueis in Phantom Menace, though.
It's a Marvel cameo. Stan Lee cameo. Plagueis appears in every movie.
So let's move on from Phantom Menace onto the second film, Attack of the Clones.
Yawn.
I love me some Attack of the Clones. I don't care what y'all say. Attack of the Clones has a special place in my heart.
Phantom Menace is
Of course
better.
it would. Of course it would for the clone simp.
Exactly.
Okay. So, let's do the same thing we did last time.
Oh god.
What is, in your opinion, a good / the best scene in Attack of the Clones?
There's one answer to this question. It is the
Geonosis.
Battle of Geonosis.
Yeah.
I used to love Attack of the
Personally,
Clones as a
I also
kid.
really like Camino. I like the scenes on Camino a lot. I think they're good in terms of setting the tone and the mood and the fact that, maybe you shouldn't trust the clones. Yeah. But, yeah, Geonosis.
Yeah.
I'm going to be right back.
I'm gonna be left here.
I am going to narrow down from Battle of Geonosis to specifically Anakin, Obi-Wan, Yoda versus Dooku. Because there's a whole bunch of character building mainly for Anakin and Dooku in that scene. That's pretty good. Mostly it's Anakin being an idiot. It's 90% Anakin being an idiot.
As he usually does.
But the fight choreography is wonderful. It does some work for Yoda. It does a lot for just showing off the skill and arrogance of Dooku.
Yeah, I amend my answer from just the Battle of Geonosis to Battle of Geonosis and Christopher Lee.
The Battle of Christopher
Just
Lee.
Christopher Lee.
just anytime he's on the screen.
You're
Honestly,
not
yeah.
wrong.
So, pretty much 90% of Geonosis is what I love the most about Attack of the Clones, and that's just the arena fight, the proper battle, and the duel between Anakin, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Dooku.
The arena fight? You mean my sexual awakening?
Okay, Marin. Okay.
This just in. Marin enjoys Acklay.
Yeah, that one scene where the
Either that.
Geonosian gets absolutely ruined by one of the animals. Yeah. Whew.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay,
Marin.
while,
That was
Go
rude.
on.
while we find something, while we find a spray bottle of cold water to just spray Marin down with,
I've got one with vinegar, it's fine.
it sucks to me that the best part of this entire film is at the very end. So you have to slog through the rest of it to get there. Now, with that being said, I imagine this will be a harder thing to do just because there's so much of it in the film. What is the worst scene in this entire movie?
Oh, there's no contest. I
Go
don't
on.
like sand.
Yeah.
No, it's overhated. I actually don't hate that scene. Sorry.
I mean, I don't hate I hate the way it is written and directed. Its existence is fine. It just needs to be better. But it's the only part of the movie that I outright hate. Am I bored by a lot of other sections of it? Sure. Hell, thinking about it, I think I've gotten on the Attack of the Clones overhate hype train, because chasing Zamwazel is pretty decent.
Mhm.
Obi-Wan's detective work on Kamino is pretty decent. Tusken, I guess actually Tuskens would be another bad one, but it does do a lot of development work for Padme and Anakin. I've already spoken about Naboo, and then after that, it's just like, oh, is the correct answer actually Droid Factory?
Yeah,
That's just like
Yeah,
good
the
old
correct answer is the
classic
Droid
Star
Factory
Wars.
section.
I
Fun, though.
agree with that one.
I get it, but
I'll also
as a
agree with that
person-
one.
yeah, I guess this is just from my own experience. The scenes between Anakin and Padme on Naboo make me so viscerally uncomfortable. I am physically unable to watch them. Just because I'm like, oh, I feel like if I were Padme in this situation, I would genuinely just be leaving the room, like 74% of the time. I'd be like, no, you know what? I'm not gonna deal with this.
There's a full
Yeah.
26% of the time that you'd stay.
Surprisingly,
26, Marin?
yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know you hated yourself that much.
Mm.
Well, it's like some of those scenes border on like actually being almost interesting, like the sand scene, and then Anakin's just like, "Oh, look at how smooth your skin is," and starts caressing her, and it's like, because the juxtaposition of their opinions on sand, it's such a simple
It's
thing
interesting, yeah.
that highlights them as a whole. One is royalty, the other's a former slave. One sees sand as the beach, the other sees it as the desert. And that's really interesting. Some of their lines are like really close to being. And then it's. And then he starts touching her shoulder, and it's like, man.
Bad
Elvis.
touch. Bad touch.
I think it's just another matter of, I guess technically this is like the opposite problem of Phantom Menace, actually, where it's so wrapped up in telling its narrative, it forgets to develop its characters properly.
In other words, another case of overcorrection.
Yeah, because I mean, just a
The
little bit
previous-
more work on the dialogue would have made it so much better.
Yeah, the previous movie was moving too slow. I feel like this movie is moving a lot faster in some places. A lot faster than it needs to go.
I feel like this movie just doesn't make sense sometimes.
Yeah. No, because how
The
long
clothes.
did... Yeah. How long
let's-
did Anakin and Padme actually, like, spend together on Naboo?
That's a good
couple
question.
of weeks at most.
Couple of weeks?
think-
Probably a week or two.
Yeah. And then they get married after?
Yeah.
That's normal.
I would like to take this time to just highlight the absurdity of Zamwazel being hired.
Okay, not this again. I've heard this one before.
Palpatine wants Padme dead, so he tells Dooku to do it, who hires Jango, who hires Zamwazel, who sends a drone, who sends poisonous centipedes. Or I assume
you wanna-
venomous centipedes, actually.
If you want to get more like precise about it, these centipedes send venom to do their job.
Yes,
The
get as
point
pedantic
stands,
as
though.
possible.
And then instead, when Zamwazel fails, instead of taking the opportunity of the Jedi not being there to just kill Padme, he kills Zam instead.
Well, you can't have anyone telling people who hired you.
Well,
But
this
I will
is
agree that was scuffed.
this is where the convolution begins. So excluding this super convoluted, contrived plan, how would the Jedi have ever learned about the clone army?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was
Not
coming
at
to
all.
tell them. Because Sifo Dyas is
Using-
dead.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah,
the way I
yeah.
see it, they could have shortcut a lot of steps in this chain. Palpatine goes directly to Jango. Jango hires Zam as a distraction. Some other bullshit happens so that Boba Fett is not successful in killing Padme because something main character something plot armor, etc., etc. Zam is captured instead of killed and says, "Hey, Jango had me meet him on a planet called Camino. Here's the coordinates."
Well, so I don't know what the movie's intention with this chase is, because first off, why do the Kaminoans make these little darts? Because it's not
That's
like
a
they
good
make
question.
the gear for the clones or anything. They don't make gear.
Yeah.
But apparently they make Kaminoan saber darts. There's no way that Jango Fett fires one of those by accident to then lead Obi-Wan. I don't know what's going on in this movie. This is my problem with Attack of the Clones. At least Phantom Menace, it's like these guys are just greedy and blockading the planet for tax reasons. This movie is... So there's a Jedi who ordered an army and then died 10 years ago. Nobody ever told the Republic about the army. Nobody ever seems like they were going to. And Obi-Wan finds it by sheer happenstance after this stupid fucking chase that is a bounty hunter hiring a bounty hunter to send out a drone to send out some bugs. And then at the end, it's only because Jango Fett uses a dart made by people that don't even really manufacture weapons in the first place. And then manages to learn about Kamino, but it's not in the Jedi archives, so obviously it wasn't meant to be found. But the Jedi are still supposed to find the clone army? What the fuck? What is going on here?
For the sake of intrigue?
Yeah.
Which is weird because normally you question intrigue and the Jedi don't.
Yeah. Obi-Wan gets there, they start using the clones, and never once are they like, you know how Mace Windu just beheaded this guy in the arena? You know, he's been trying to kill Jedi this entire time. Is it a bad idea to use 200,000 duplicates of that man? There's no nefarious purpose here, right? Surely not.
Yeah. It because how else would the clones have been introduced if it hadn't been Obi-Wan finding them by happenstance?
Yeah.
Other than, like, sure, like, realistically, if it hadn't been Obi-Wan, Palpatine would have just been like, oh, these guys are here, and
Yeah, I found these.
then everyone's like, hey, where the fuck did you get God knows how many soldiers?
Who the fuck cares? We have a war to win.
Clearly, he won them on the stock market.
Yeah, and why are they all exact copies of a notorious bounty hunter? What?
Stock market.
Is stock market
Yeah,
going to be your answer for every question from now on?
Gambling.
Stock market.
Then they have these little details, like Boba Fett knows how to look for that trick in Empire Strikes Back because Obi-Wan used it on him in Attack of the Clones. And it's like, so you can add this little continuity thing in, but you can't make your point-to-point plot make sense. What is going on in this movie?
Because, like, to be honest, I think the entire existence for that whole convoluted plot is they had bullet points of they find out about they find evidence that points them to Dex, that points them to Kamino, and they wanted to start the movie off strong with an action set piece.
Yeah.
Which
All right.
just turned into the overly convoluted mess. Anyway, Sonata.
Okay, so I think the answer of what is the worst part of this film has been answered satisfactorily by everyone.
It's everything.
So let's move on to the next little question I have here. You can change one thing about Attack of the Clones in an attempt to make it a better film. What do you change?
Darth Sidious's IQ level.
Oh my god. After listening to Justice poke holes in that,
It's just internal logic.
change the
I don't
mystery
know.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can still have it be a mystery realistically, but just have it be set up in a different way. You can still have Kamino be deleted from the archives, but then
Okay.
it's just
I got a semi-answer for this. Obi-Wan jumps out the window, follows Zam. Anakin stays because Padme's still there. Jango Fett does go for the assassination attempt. And this is the first instance in which you get to see just why they would pick Jango Fett for the clone template. You get to see him and Anakin the first 20 minutes of the movie have some super cool fight, and Anakin get his ass beat, but live through whatever means. And then maybe you get like, we're not even going to talk about like the Kamino and Saber Dart and the logistics of Kamino making them. But you know, maybe during that fight he fires a Kamino and Saber Dart that happens, or Anakin foils the attack enough that Jango Fett flees, and they do capture Zam. Like, none of it suggested. Or even Jango Fett flees. Obi-Wan has Zam utters Kamino before getting absolutely dumpstered by Jango Fett. You know, something like that, where it's Jango Fett still gets out in time to cover his tracks and show that at least he's efficient even when the job doesn't get done. And then it's almost like, well, look, Anakin proved himself pretty well here in going toe-to-toe with a Mandalorian. Let's stick him on Padme's protection detail.
And then the entire plot makes sense.
And then, it's... Because I could see the original plan being Palpatine just pulls the army out of his ass somewhere. Like, oh, look, Kamino approached me and offered me this army, and we just happened to need it. Very fortuitous timing.
Yeah.
And I think...
I used my emergency powers to make the purchase. It's that simple.
And I think that having that somehow be clear that the Jedi finding it was not the original plan, and thus kind of emphasizing Palpatine's intelligence as an improviser. Yeah, because that's where Palpatine has his plans nearly unraveled like 30,000 different times and manages to keep it on track. He's not, I've thought everything out. It's, I can make anything work in my favor, which is cooler, honestly.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
I think that's what I'd change. Is I think that simple reallocation of Anakin further solidifies like why, you know, Padme's like, oh, look at how brave and valiant little Annie is, that he stayed behind and got his ass beat by Jango Fett for me.
Yeah. And you can even kind of tie your two ideas together. Jango beats the shit out of Anakin, and then when he realizes he's not going to be able to get through quickly enough to kill Padme, he fucks off to go off Zam.
I mean, you can even make Padme a bit of a badass in this scene and have her go for a gun,
Fighting
and
back,
she's why Jango Fett leaves. Because originally Jango Fett's armor didn't tank shots like, you know, originally his armor wasn't full Beskar, but that's whatever.
The point.
Yeah. I think that's the one change I'd make that would literally fix the entire fucking movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I would rather it's that or just redirect. I won't say rewrite. Redirect the romance scenes between Padme and Anakin. It would be between those two changes.
So, almost everything Justice has said so far is what I would change as well, though I would make another slight modification. So, remember when Obi-Wan thought to throw the tracker on Jango's ship, and that's how he tracked Jango to Geonosis?
Yeah.
So, so stay with me here. Let's say that everything that Justice says has happened, but along the way, while Obi-Wan, after Jango kills Zam, what's stopping Obi-Wan and Anakin from trying to follow him? And a tracker on his ship is how they find out where Kamino is. Maybe not that Kamino is there, but just, this is where Jango went, let's follow him. You know what I mean?
Well, you could.
I
I
question
think-
logistics of. It would be another chase scene. And it'd be a chase scene hot on the heels of flitting back and forth between a chase scene and a fight. Because they'd have to chase Jango back to his ship, and then hit him with the tracker.
Yeah, the only real problem is if you frame it like they frame the original one, right? Like Jango Fett just jetpacks off. It's kind of hard to keep up with that when you just wreck your airspeeder. And by the time you quote unquote requisition another one, he's gone. That's kind of where I'm like, it wouldn't be bad to have it necessarily be a slip up. It's the fact that it's Coruscant that makes this questionable.
My other question then would be, if we make this change and have the tracker come in now instead of later, how does Obi-Wan get from Kamino to Geonosis? Because you can't.
True.
When writing this stuff, you could just do a tracker again, but that just kind of
It cheapens it.
it cheapens
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it doesn't make it feel. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I think Dex and the Jedi Archives are both very valuable in the actual hunt for Kamino. I think both of those, at the very least, because like if there's no saber dart and Zam just says Kamino, it'd be going to the archives, looking up Kamino, then going to Dex, who theoretically knows more about weird shit, and then just going to wherever it theoretically should be.
Yeah, and Dex is interesting from like a mild, like he's not a big role or anything, but it's like, look, the Jedi Order goes through the effort to cultivate friendships, or maybe at least Obi-Wan does. You know, almost like how cops have like CIs, where it's like, you know, they've got people out on the street that feed them information. You know,
Yeah.
So it's like Dex is important to kind of just characterize the Jedi as, these guys aren't stupid. They know to have friends to ask around that know things that they don't. And I think that's important. I think you'd have to reframe the entire chase if you want to chase with Jango Fett from Coruscant to Kamino. You might just cut Zam out entirely then, and it's Jango Fett sends the droid, or it's just Jango Fett himself who decides to step in, and then you have a fight with the two of them, and you just have a full-on 2 Jedi versus Jango full-on fight scene in Padme's bedroom, and then they follow. And maybe you could get away with that, but then you have the Geonosis conundrum again. So it's like it could work, but it becomes 400 changes. It becomes a lot of changes, but yeah. My other change would just be to cut out the first 2/3 of the movie. It's just 2 hours of the Battle of Geonosis and nothing else.
Hell
my-
yeah.
Aside from, you know, what Justice has mentioned, which I am very much on board with, my change would be either just like a complete redo of Anakin arriving on Geonosis. Because like that entire slog through the droid factory is a really convoluted way to just get him captured.
Yeah.
Because with this, they could have in 2 minutes gotten the same effect by just dropping 300 Geonosians on them all at once, and then Dooku just comes and takes his lightsaber and Padme's blaster. And then they're
Yeah.
unarmed, they're prisoners, they're shoved in the arena, Obi-Wan's there, and Battle of Geonosis happens as normal. You don't need the stupid, contrived, dodging and fighting along conveyor belts. That make absolutely no sense, because if in any half reasonable factory, that would all be enclosed.
They
They're
don't have
fa-
OSHA in Star Wars. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
And if you
No,
look
it's
at
just
them,
an efficiency thing.
yeah.
Enclosures reduce heat loss.
If you look in the background, they have so many like winding, curving conveyor belts, and I'm just like, why do you guys exist? Why do you like a winding curve like that? Besides to create
Counterpoint,
visual
have you
interest.
seen someone play Satisfactory?
Well, yeah, but that's probably the issue. It's probably the same issue, and that's somebody who doesn't
Yeah.
professionally
Yeah.
design factories. I think you give
Yes.
them an additional objective where it's like, oh shit. Because first off, like, you know it's a battle droid factory, but you don't see a lot of battle droids until like the end when they're doing the stupid fucking C-3PO bit where they slam
Yeah,
them.
that's part of why I just want to remove it so we don't deal with that.
Yeah.
It is
But
I,
it's-
C-3PO. I bet you didn't recognize me because of my battle droid body.
Yeah. But it's like, what you also do, because we didn't have the SBDs in Phantom Menace, did we?
No.
That
No,
would have
it
been
was just
something to
droid.
show off them making
Yeah.
here. Is like Anakin and Padme going, holy fuck, look at those. And so it's kind of this suspense of like, look at them building their forces.
And that
Maybe
they're
occasional.
captured by a bunch of SBDs, yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe you cut to Jango Fett stalking them. Jango Fett somehow knows they're there, and you get to see Jango Fett kind of do his tracking stealth thing. Another reason to show him being cool, and then he gets to beat Anakin's ass again,
Yeah.
disarming him, but not this stupid Anakin broke his lightsaber thing.
Yep.
I just want to make Jango Fett beat up Anakin a few times. I think.
I mean,
And-
it's good for Anakin's ego.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why it shows. I think it'd be all the funnier then to have Mace Windu just like 3-tap him, or it's like
Oh, yeah.
deflect the shot, cut off the hand, cut off the head,
Bing, bong,
and it's
pow.
like, there you go. You got. This is why Mace Windu is so cool. Also, Jango Fett didn't have the
Yeah.
jetpack, so that's genuinely the only reason he got so rolled.
Yep.
But I don't care for the factory in its current state.
I don't. It's a spectacle scene. That's all it is.
Yep.
It's a spectacle scene immediately followed by a better spectacle scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, you ever wanted to see a huge cluster of Jedi with their lightsabers out? Yeah, it's the only time we get to, really. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fucking cool.
I mean, that was like the entirety of the Jedi Order, too.
Yeah.
At least a significant chunk of it.
And then they all died.
Yeah, because they're
Killed you.
bozos.
Fucking
Well,
bastard.
It's
To
the
be
Jedi
fair,
Purge
they're-
before the Jedi Purge.
I mean, they were stupid just in general for waltzing on in there. Just expecting that to just go all hunky dory.
Okay,
That,
let's
that
talk. about another convolution. How did they hide the Jedi in the stands? You tell me
There we
not
go.
That
one.
person's just a random dude in a cloak.
You tell me that the
Another dude
Geonosians
in a
did not notice one non-Geonosian motherfucker.
Why would they? Clearly, they're just guests of the Count.
How?
Clearly. Sitting
Yeah.
as far away from him as humanly possible.
Because nobody actually likes sitting near the Count.
Also,
Exactly.
why is Geonosis not like a secure facility at all? Like Mace Windu just
Yeah, why are they
walks
just
up
able to walk into
them.
the factory?
I mean, to be fair, Anakin and Padme do kill a couple Geonosian guards.
Yeah,
On
but
their
the
way
door
in.
wasn't even locked.
And it's implied, I think, that Obi-Wan runs into a fair bit of trouble, but he's also able to walk in. And then Mace Windu walks right up to Count Dooku.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one that you kind of overlook for spectacle's sake, though, and I'm never like, oh wow, this is really dumb. But, at the same time, like, we've nitpicked the rest of the movie. This movie really is just, we've got plot points, we don't know how to hit them, let's hit them.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So, shall we move on to what I think is the best of the prequels, Revenge of the Sith?
Oh, what a strikingly hot take, Shirley. I'm
Oh,
fucking with you.
that
I
take
do
is
agree.
Go for
scalding.
it.
Alrighty, let's shake things up a bit. We're gonna start off with, what do you think is the worst scene or part of Revenge of the Sith?
It's been so long. Okay. For a second, I straight up just couldn't remember the beginning of the movie.
No, the
Well, I mean,
beginning of
it's
the
everything
movie
that you think.
is, yeah. The beginning of the movie is the best Star Wars opening.
Yeah, by far.
God, that's a hard question. At least for
Sure.
me.
I'm trying to remember the movie.
Yeah.
Because to pick a scene I don't like is odd, because I do pretty thoroughly enjoy this movie. I can say that there are things that were omitted that should have been included.
Yes.
Like the delegation of the 2000 should have been included. They should have just.
What is that?
That's essentially Padme and Mon Mothma and Bail laying the foundation of the rebellion. Essentially, they start a petition.
Hey, can we
to-
end the war?
Yeah, to ensure that when the war ends, Palpatine will surrender his emergency powers. And if they don't, well, there's going to be problems. Padme, in general, in this movie, drew the short straw. She's no longer a character too much. She doesn't do a whole lot, other than be pregnant and give birth. And so that's how Liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
Also, Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
Yeah.
No, I think he is breaking your neck. Sorry, sweetie. Wrong. By
That
heart.
too.
Like, the modulation they use on Darth Sidious is fucking terrible in this movie, and I hate it. There you go. I found something.
That's what
right,
you changed.
right after he gets electrocuted
Yeah.
by Mace Windu, and
God.
he gets really modulated, and I don't know why.
I mean, I suspect it's to emulate his voice being hoarse from screaming. But like,
They should have just
What is
locked
the purpose?
Ian McDiarmid in a fucking box and made him actually go hoarse for a little bit and then film the scene. Like,
A box?
Yeah, I don't know why we're locking him in a box.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah, I don't have complaints with the scenes, with actual scenes necessarily.
Yeah, my problems are with the scenes that aren't in that should have been.
Yeah.
That or minor changes in direction. Because, like, I mean, again, there's a reason why Have You Ever Heard the Tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is a meme. That I feel like that
I
scene
thought
could
not.
Oh,
have
yeah.
been improved with a little bit of directing choices, like minor directing choices.
I do agree. I think personally, I think the two scenes really that I wish were in were the delegation, and just when Obi-Wan goes to talk to Padme before Mustafar.
Yeah, and he tells her that he knew all along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that scene should
I
have
would
been
have
in the movie.
fucking loved that.
That's those scenes are like, yeah, I don't care if they're not in a movie. They're canon. Like,
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
tell me otherwise.
I guess
Because
my big
Go for it.
complaint is just the fact that Padme becomes a non-character.
Yep.
and I think that's,
Because I honestly think, sorry to keep talking, but I honestly think that the if the Padme from Attack of the Clones would have willingly took Obi-Wan with her and went to confront Anakin instead of just being afraid and in
Yeah.
denial.
I also don't know how the same Padme who witnessed, who Anakin openly admitted to murdering the Tusken Raiders was like, Anakin? Murder a bunch of children? He would never.
Well, yeah, those are children. Sand people aren't people.
Yeah, but
Correct.
he did say he murdered the men, women, and children.
Yeah, but they're not people. So
Children
they
are
don't count.
children are still children. He used the word children, thus they are children.
I mean, yeah, but it's children as opposed to people children.
I think
I will stop with the joke now.
I think Anakin's fall is. I think it could have been done better. I get all of the like motivations behind it, but I think without kind of seeing him throughout the Clone Wars, and especially factoring in like, you have the whole Ahsoka trial, but none of that was a thing.
Yeah.
You don't.
yeah, that's
Anakin's
the,
fall only makes sense to be that quick with the context of the show.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say earlier is like we get a lot of we get a lot of Padme agency, and two, we just get a lot more Padme interacting with other characters like Obi-Wan. Because I mean, just watching the movies, like Padme and Obi-Wan are just like, all right, you're cool. Sure. But with the context of the Clone Wars show, you get a lot more of their relationship, and then you get the cut scene, or is it a cut scene or is it a scene that was like in the novelization? I can't remember. Obi-Wan talking to Padme.
That was
it
cut.
was cut.
Okay. That's just like, I wish we could have gotten that, because then we could have gotten. It just would have been really nice.
Especially his line, I've tried to ignore it because it makes him happy and nothing else does. Like, it's just. I think that shows like the cracks in the deeper like Jedi, where it's like not all of them completely agree, and that's interesting to kind of show that individuality, and that Anakin is not the only one, and it makes Obi-Wan seem like a bit less of an ass, because Obi-Wan comes across as an ass sometimes. Like he doesn't seem very good at his job as a Jedi Master sometimes. Especially with his interactions with Anakin post Council, because especially with Clone Wars context, you're like, yeah, Obi-Wan doesn't agree with this shit about him being a spy, and it's like in the movie it almost comes across as Obi-Wan kind of does agree, but he's like not wanting to admit it. You can read it either way, and it's not clear that Obi-Wan's like, yeah, look, it's not me, it's the council asking you. The council is asking you. And it's like, well, okay, so are you just trying to hide behind them as a shield? Or are you saying, I don't agree, but I can't do anything about it because I'm just one person? And I don't know. But I just think in general that Anakin goes from whiny to murdering kids
Murderer.
very fast.
The pipeline is very short.
Yeah.
But it is,
All right.
by God, it is a pipeline.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
So, let's move on to what was first for the previous two films. What is the best part of Revenge of the Sith for you?
Cinema's longest sword fight.
Is it still?
I think so.
I'm surprised Game of Thrones didn't try to one-up it.
God.
I mean, all they would have had to do is just add an extra badly lit sword fight and just run it for the entire duration of the Battle of Winterfell.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Hey guys, we did it.
Obligatory Game of Thrones.
We
reference.
finally got one. We are an hour and 15 minutes. We've gone an hour and 15 minutes without mentioning Game of Thrones. Holy shit.
And I had to do it for the fellows on Marin's Discord that are that
Yeah.
are fairly watching it to get the references.
Shout out you guys. No.
Thanks for joining my Discord.
Yeah, no. I'm just kind of a big fan of that just whole wrap up where it's like just kind of how just Sag Obi-Wan is. He can't bring himself to kill Anakin. He kind of thinks that he's done the job and then Anakin's going to die, but he can't strike the killing blow and leaves him for a far worse fate. Even if you were to die by lava and fire, like, that's far worse than, just killing him yourself. And instead he walks away because he can't bring himself to do it. He's just a big Sag guy.
He has no espresso to go with his depresso.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate. I think I have to agree. I think that is also my favorite scene. I'm trying to think of another one. That, or maybe just I really another happy landing is cute. Anakin running up to see Padme. And then, like, after that happens, it's kind of how happy they are to see each other and how happy they are that the other is okay. I like that scene a lot.
My answer would have, aside from, the obvious, the obvious one, would have to be the opening.
Yeah.
Because it is a masterfully done set of CGIs, set pieces, and character moments, including seeing just because if you look at it from like that outsider's perspective, Palpatine is in the perfect win-win position there. If Anakin and Obi-Wan defeat Dooku, then he gets this plan going the way he wants. If Dooku wins, well, then he is on his flagship, ready to finish off the Republic.
Yeah.
Because he'll just use his oh, the Jedi failed. I guess I'll just have to surrender. And then and then Dooku takes over, and he becomes the power behind the throne. There is the only way for Sidious to lose is for him to die, which isn't going to happen.
I don't know. He was very scared he was gonna die post when they're landing the ship.
Oh,
He's
yes.
terrified.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
don't.
funny.
I don't think the crash landing was ever part of the plan. That being said, I think it is in fact a masterclass in Palpatine's ability to improvise, and it's great character moments. It's got great action. That entire sequence is. I mean, without that opening, there's no rest of this movie.
Yeah.
Because
I also feel like go for it. Sorry.
because until you get to Mustafar, or maybe Utapau, there aren't other good hook moments to pull people into the story.
You know what? Fuck you. You actually reminded me. I'm changing my answer. Order 66.
Yep.
I love that scene, with or without the context of the Clone Wars. Because without the
This just
context of
in.
the Clone Wars,
I'm
this
sorry,
just in,
Mary,
I
go
love
ahead.
scenes with clones. No, without the context of the Clone Wars, you are seeing all of the Jedi die. And these are characters, some of them you know, some of them you've seen before. They're hunting Obi-Wan, who's like our guy. Hey, this is a big fucking deal. And these clones are heartless bastards. Whenever you don't have the context of the
Yep.
Clone Wars. Whenever you have the context of the Clone Wars, you have that added on, holy shit, the clones don't even realize what they're doing. Or they do realize what they're doing and they can't stop.
It's
that
just
added
in.
layer.
Marin likes watching attempted genocide.
I
Is
like it
genocide the right
because-
term?
And it's the closest one I could think of off the top of my head.
They're not really a culture or a people. They're a profession. You can't really genocide a profession.
You could argue that the Jedi are also a religion or a monastic order.
Yeah, but a monastic order isn't. You don't genocide those. You just kill them.
Something
Okay,
like that.
Marin enjoys watching mass murder.
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know why
own
y'all are
personal-
realizing this.
Oh no, we're just stating it for the audience.
Yeah.
We already knew
Yes.
this.
My own personal favorite has always been difficult for me to really say because so many parts of this film are really, really good. But out of all of them, the one that I enjoy the most whenever I go back and watch it would have to be the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin. There are not many parts of that movie that I go back to on a regular basis to just get in the zone and see it again, except for that duel. Because it is such a well-done duel. A little fun fact about it even, they were moving so fast at some points that they had to slow down their choreography so that the cameras could capture them properly.
I mean,
Let's
that is a good sign. That
Over.
shows that they were enjoying the choreography too.
Yeah.
Just that whole scene, that whole duel and the scenes after it, especially like the birth of Vader, are easily some of my favorite parts of that whole movie.
Yeah. What? I have a question. What are y'all's opinions on the Vader no?
I think he's saying no.
I do think he's saying no.
Is there
But
an
a lot of
opinion
people,
that?
like deem that to shit.
I mean, it's a funny to use line. I mean, he's just saying no. I don't know. What's the?
I
Because a
remember
lot of
hating it a whole lot when I was younger, but as I got older, I just kind of lost my capacity to care because I thought, yeah, that's kind of cringe, but what leads up to it is worth it in my head, so I don't care as much.
I think it's a pretty apt reaction.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not
How
sure.
else are you supposed to?
Yeah, I mean, what else is he supposed to do? Fall to his knees?
He does fall to his knees, doesn't he?
I think he does in
Stepped
the
out,
novel, but
goes-
not in the movie.
Yeah.
No, he does just lean
Um,
back. I think I don't remember.
Yeah, because he's standing upright. He's leaning back. He leans back while he's screaming now. I mean, the voice work was impeccable. He
Yeah, that's
sounds,
what.
he sounds distressed.
Yeah, he sounds like he is an incredible mourning, grieving, rageful, vengeful pain.
Yeah.
IMO. I like it.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, like it's. I like using it as a reaction sometimes because out of context, I think it's funny. But like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's cringe. I think it's an apt reaction given the fact that he believes that he killed his wife. That the entire reason for everything that has happened in the movie and him committing, I don't know, religious homicide, religious genocide, him fighting his friend, it's he lost it, and there's little else you can say, but no, very loudly.
So I asked for the previous two films, what would you change to make the film war, or what would you do to make a film better, I should say. For this next one, we're gonna have a bit of fun. What would you change in this movie to make it worse?
I don't know if I can answer this question because my answer could be range from just slapping dicks on the side of all the gunships to giving Jar Jar Binks more lines to C-3PO
Yeah,
battle
that's what
droid
I was
coming
gonna
back.
say.
Like
Focus
I
more
can
on
tank
things
this
that are
movie in
big.
1,000 ways.
To make it a worse story, I would just cut the Battle of Coruscant.
Yeah.
Without that hook to pull you into the movie, why would you care?
They makes a good point. You cut the battle
Cut the
Uh-oh.
internet too.
Coruscant out, or even worse, commit the sin of just saying, or just commit the sin of having it be mentioned in like the opening crawl, but not actually on screen.
Better yet,
It's-
you resume, like you start the movie with another happy landing.
Huh.
That's where you start the movie. Everything else before that was left on the cutting room floor.
No, that'd be funny. That'd be really funny if it just opens and it's just Obi-Wan wiping his hair back and going, another happy landing, and then get out and it's half a separatist ship. That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, but it breaks you out of your immersion, and you have there's no hook.
If I were to
I like
change
Donovan's
something-
answer the most.
I want to
I'll
see this cut
specify-
of the movie now.
I'll specify changing something about my favorite scene. So changing something about Order 66. Have Cody and Obi-Wan talk to each other afterward, or like during the battle. That would immediately ruin all of it. Because the point of that scene is the clones are just drones at that point. They are just doing their job. If Obi-Wan had a moment where he had been face to face with Cody and been like, "Why are you doing this?" and Cody had been like, because I have orders or whatever. That would have completely ruined the entire scene.
Fun fact, that's almost word for word what happens in the video game tie-in for the movie.
Mm.
Not
Yeah.
Cody, but just some clones on a lat rise up to meet you, and Obi-Wan tries giving them an order, and the clones just say, "We are no longer bound to follow your orders."
Mm. There's a I think it's God, I can't remember where it's from. I want to say it's a novelization, but you get Cody's perspective and he's like it's like while he's kind of trying to execute Order 66, he has a little moment to himself where he's like, "Man, I really wish I hadn't given him back his fucking lightsaber."
Yeah. I think
Yo,
that
Poppy.
Why
yeah.
are you doing this? I wish I hadn't given you back your lightsaber.
It's I think the giving back the lightsaber really I think that's such small but good symbolism of like it really was a turn on a dime. You know, it's half a second later they're suddenly shooting him. And if this was like a planned by the troops and not just ordered, they probably would not have given him his lightsaber back.
Yeah.
Ignoring the fact that that lightsaber, while it's on Cody's belt, clips into his thigh like 4 different times.
It's fine.
Look,
It's
we just don't pay. We're just not going to acknowledge the fact that clone trooper armor is CGI.
And it somehow looks better than when the clone trooper armor is fucking
Is real? Yeah.
real.
We already have our episode out about Ahsoka.
We do.
It's not even an Ahsoka thing. It's just a general
All right.
live-action Star Wars. All right.
What's your answer though, Sonata?
Yeah.
So, my own answer. I've had some time to really think this over. And I think the one way I could truly make this movie worse is if I have... Like, the best way I could think of to make this movie, like, a whole lot worse, really, would be if I just had Yoda, for lack of a better term, go out like a bitch. So, during his fight with Palpatine...
bitch.
No, he puts up one hell of a fight, though. Like...
Yeah, and then
more
he just
than-
randomly runs away.
Yeah, he wasn't ever
But
defeated.
imagine-
He just decides to. He decides he'd rather have a nap.
But, like, my whole point is just... Okay, so let's imagine this for a second. The first time Palpatine lightnings Yoda. In the movie, Yoda gets back up and the fight commences. Can you imagine if Palpatine just lightninged Yoda, and then afterwards Yoda then chooses that as the time to run?
It'd be fucking hilarious. Again, this is a funny change. The problem is you can't make Yoda look like too much of a bitch because he has to stay alive. No, that's the change I would make. I'd just start making non-canon changes. Yoda dies, and you're just left like, what the fuck does this mean? It's never
is this a
explained who
different
Yoda.
Yoda?
Yeah, it's never explained who Yoda in Episode 5 is.
Clearly, it's just a Force ghost.
Then how's he die and come back as a Force ghost?
By being a Force ghost and fucking off.
He's Force Ghost squared. Obi-Wan kills Anakin. Yoda dies. Those are the changes I make.
I just got a weird fucking chunk of deja vu.
Alright. So, I just want to ask you guys, for the entire prequel trilogy, the final thoughts. Like, have these movies... Since the last time you saw them, which for me would be roughly within the last week, I suppose. Since the last time you saw them, have they collectively, all three together, been better than you remember, worse than you remember, or about the same?
I
Man.
found the same level of enjoyment in the movies that I have when I was a kid. Like, I still enjoy them the same amount, just for different reasons now. I don't think I like them better or worse.
I would say I've oscillated a lot throughout my life. And that, like, as a kid, Attack of the Clones is my favorite because I was willing to sit through an hour and a half of dog shit for the Battle of Geonosis.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then, you know, I hit my edgy Star Wars phase where it's like, oh, you know, now you look at things, quote unquote, objectively, and the prequels are objectively bad, and the sequels are objectively bad. And the one day I sat down and watched them all, and I was like, man, these aren't none of these Star Wars movies are nearly as bad as people say they are. So it's like I get enjoyment out of them. I consistently get enjoyment out of them when I watch them. Whenever I do watch them, I didn't watch them for this episode. I should have, but last time I watched them was like probably like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I don't know. Hasn't been that long. It's like I don't know. I enjoy them. I don't hate them. They're rough in some spots and very illogical, but I don't hate them.
Yeah. That's about my experience as well, yeah.
My opinion of the prequels has changed quite a bit throughout my life. And for me, the question is it worth going through the previous 2 films to go into the third? And now I would say yes, if only because if you didn't, then very little of it would make any real sense.
Hmm.
But overall, my opinion has changed quite a bit, but now I just say that they're alright movies with a hell of a lot of flaws, but they are worth a watch in the end.
The movies still make me happy, and to me, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
How much
I
time
think
we
that
been
about
running?
Minute 40 or hour 40, minute 40.
We have been
Minute
talking
40?
for a
A
minute.
minute
Yeah, we've been
40.
we have been talking quickly.
Yeah. I do have one last change that I would make. This is my Phantom Menace change that I mentioned that I have not spoken on yet. Axe the Phantom Menace entirely. No Phantom Menace. Attack of the Clones is the movie you start with. You open with Attack of the Clones. You have a 2-hour Clone Wars movie, not necessarily show themed or anything, but detailing the events as, you know, maybe George Lucas originally intended them. Set as the second movie, and you play Anakin from the horrors of war and pragmatism necessary evil angle, and maybe you kind of retroactively learn about him as a slave through, you know, you can still run the mom plot, I think, through Attack of the Clones, and it's like, instead of like, oh, she's been stolen by Tuskens, maybe she's being treated poorly by Watto, so he just goes and brutally murders Watto. There you go. You know, maybe slight changes, so it's like, oh, here's my old owner, he's not any better, he's worse. You've got Anakin's reflections on that. But you open with Attack of the... I feel like a lot of the Phantom Menace is kind of not necessary.
Why am I so on board for that? I am so down for that.
I don't
I too
know
am down for that.
how much of Anakin's 9-year-old backstory matters. I don't... I think you can get the effects of him as a slave through different means. and then you can talk about
Yeah,
this big
just watch
galaxy
the fucking
spanning.
Siberian arc
Well,
from the Clone Wars.
you can I think you just play up the Shmi conflict on Tatooine. And you know, have him go back, have the dreams be a big deal while Obi-Wan's running down. You know, Attack of the Clones still kind of runs the same. And then the second movie then becomes something, a lot of like Anakin and Obi-Wan's exploits during the war, and Anakin, as he goes through, he's kind of increasingly compromising with like the generally held Jedi Order beliefs because he feels he needs to. And it's in that movie where I think you need to start laying the seeds for dreaming of Padme's demise. And having this 2-movie build up makes the dark side make a lot more sense, because you see that he's like, well, murdering Admiral Trench, for instance, in cold blood is not the Jedi way, but think about how many lives I just saved. And it's increasingly compromising. Doing a whole 3-year war over a single movie might not be the easiest, but I think that might be more interesting. I think you also just axe the idea of him having a Padawan. Because you can't, that would be like a TV show thing still, if you were to do.
No.
But you know, like,
Sorry,
you couldn't do Ahsoka in a 2-hour movie and then have her not show up again. And then you go into Revenge of the Sith after that. Like,
I mean, if you absolutely have to include her, just have her die at the end of the second film.
And have that be
Just
part
as
of
another
Anakin's
thing.
fall.
yeah,
another,
I mean,
another
you could,
part
yeah.
of what makes him fall.
And then, because you have all this additional war context, then you can just open on another happy landing. And then it actually
Yeah.
makes a little sense. We can get the Donovan cut.
No, no, we don't want the Donovan cut.
Hey, after this, do you guys want to watch the Donovan cut, actually?
Sure, why not? It's probably still a better
Okay.
movie than Phantom Menace.
Ouch.
Okay.
But I genuinely think that wouldn't be. I think it's. I don't know if we need 2 hours to know how Anakin became a Jedi. It's not that I hate the Phantom Menace. Again, I like it more than I like Attack of the Clones. But like,
I think you're
Ye-
cooking.
I don't know. I would have done it this way if I were George Lucas.
Lord Gookus.
Yeah, I would have framed it a little differently. It's, and maybe even just cut the Chosen One idea out entirely. Maybe just cut it out. Maybe it's not necessary. Keep the Anakin is dummy ass powerful.
Oh,
Cut
of
the
course.
idea of Chosen One, especially because a certain George Lucas was going to walk that back and make somebody else the Chosen One anyways if he ever did more movies according to his outlines. Anakin was never the Chosen One. Leia was going to be. That is a conversation for another day. That is not
Indeed.
prequel topic.
So,
Yeah.
I do believe that is the prequels discussed in length.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me pretending I'm a better
Uh.
writer than George Lucas, even though I'm not. Maybe I am. I don't know. We'll never find out.
The moral of today's story: the prequels are worth it, if only just barely. If you haven't watched them, do so.
Yeah, I feel. I don't know.
Two of the 3 are only barely worth it. Because of the third one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're here and you haven't watched the Star Wars prequels,
Why?
what the fuck? Why are you
Yeah,
What are
watching
you
them?
doing here?
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. but Why?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway,
Ye-
bye.
So this has been
Yeah.
Hyperdrive Hour.
This has been us. Goodbye. Have
Yo.
fun.